I'm wondering if you've been able to corner any of the players here in this arms race, if you will, that's going on in media right now.
Not just any of them, all of them. We had Brian Roberts spoke briefly to the press this morning. He said, you guys need to find something else to write about. Crucially, though, he didn't say we need to find something else to broadcast about, so we can talk about it until the cows come home. Mr. Murdoch was fairly cagey, as you might expect, and said it wasn't really something he wanted to discuss. And I think Bob Iger similarly ducked any questions relating to the deal. But look, these three are all in the same meetings. They're in the same conference. They potentially are going whitewater rafting together, or mountain biking, or horseback riding, or whatever it is they're doing. And it's going to be very interesting to see how they manage that conversation, because this is all happening in real time as they're sat here in this conference.
Absolutely. And of course, there's another deal that we need to keep in mind as well, which is Comcast and Disney both vying for 21st Century Fox's assets. Explain how these two overlap and how they influence one another.
Let me try and break that down. So you have Sky, which is now being bid for by Comcast. Sky also wants to sell itself to Fox. Fox, therefore, wants to sell itself to Disney. Comcast also wants to buy Fox and therefore end up owning Sky and Fox. So it's a complex dance, to say the least. What's interesting here is Murdoch has made his hand very clear. He wants to do a deal where he sells the Fox News assets to Disney. That would allow him to do the Sky deal, because the government has obviously said, look, Murdoch can buy Sky, but it's contingent on him exiting the other news assets via the deal with Disney. Comcast coming in for the deal with Sky, but the question is, do they just want Sky because it helps them expand internationally, or do they want to buy that because it essentially throws a spanner into the works of Mr. Murdoch's plans with Disney?
Right. So obstructing, in other words. From Brian Roberts' perspective, the head of Comcast, which is the priority? Is Sky the priority, or is the assets of 21st Century Fox the priority?
I think Sky is probably the priority in terms of what they want to acquire, what they ultimately want to end up owning, because they do want to expand the international business. He's been very vocal about this. But I think one important point to make clear here is there is also a second-order consequence that they don't want Disney to end up owning the Fox assets. So, yes, they probably, if you took everything they could own, Sky would be the crown jewel for them, but they also want to do a deal that would make it very hard for Disney to end up owning assets that would make them much more competitive with Comcast.
And of course, besides all the competition between these guys that we're talking about, there are also the biggies that are nipping at their heels, if not have already overtaken them in some areas. I'm talking, of course, about Amazon and Netflix as they're horseback riding and whitewater rafting and all of that. It's not just, of course, these traditional media moguls. It's also a lot of the tech guys. What kind of cross-pollination and discussions are you seeing go on there?
You know, that's absolutely right in terms of why are these deals happening. They're happening because you have this huge headwind for the media industry, which comes in the form particularly of people like Mr. Bezos and Netflix, really entering that space and disrupting it in a way that has changed the whole dynamic of the industry. So what they're doing is they're saying, look, we need to do deals to essentially get out of the way of that wave that's coming towards us. I don't know whether the conversations inside the conference are sort of cordial between the various industries, but look, Mr. Bezos, he spoke this morning. From what little we've been able to glean of that, he did talk about disruption in the industry. He talked about other areas that he's taking Amazon into. Obviously, most recently, he's been making this big push into healthcare. And I think the fascinating thing about a conference like this is that you have all of those minds together under one roof for actually quite a long period of time in a very exclusive setting. So I'm sure some of the conversations will be about, look, what do we need to be doing as an industry to best protect ourselves about the disruption that's inevitably coming our way?